Hey everyone, it's Kalen, and welcome back to another episode of Kalen's Lens. This week, we're continuing with the Investing in Your Sanctuary series, which I'm so excited to be continuing with. And in this week's episode, we're focusing on something that I feel affects every single one of us, and that is our social media. That is our digital sanctuary. That is our phones. That is everything we are consumed by. But this week, we're talking about the boundaries of social media, notifications, and the reality of living in a 24/7 world, and how reclaiming your attention can genuinely transform not only your mental space, but also your physical space. So let's just get straight into it. I remember, and I distinctively remember myself last year during first year of uni where I was just constantly on my phone. It was like months I would spend doom scrolling on social media, recluttering my life with all this content on Instagram of how all these people have the perfect lives, the perfect body, the perfect this. Everything was about the word perfect. And it was like, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to see myself. That's how am I going to get there right now, right here? And the reality is that built up. It was just building up and up and up to the point where my phone was at least on 6 hours of screen time a day. And those constant loops left me just feeling drained. I realized that every time I did that, I felt worse. I felt worse than when I was to begin with. I felt harsh on myself. I did feel a slight bit of jealousy. Don't get me wrong. Like, who wouldn't want the perfect six pack? Like, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to be on holidays all the time? Who wants that? Everyone probably wants it, but it was just so overwhelming because it was like I wanted that at the same point I was doing a law degree, at the same point I was trying to just get through life and survive. And it was just all this constant things and contents and everything I was seeing became a lot. It made me really lose confidence in myself, in the way I looked, in how I felt about myself, in the way that I looked at my body, the way that I looked at my life, the way that I saw everything. My entire life felt drained. It killed me. It killed me inside. And I'm not scared to admit that. It was so death defying, definite on me. But it was the realization that changed everything for me. And it was this simple sentence: this isn't who I want to be or where I want to be, but I have the power to change it. I have the power to stop this. I have the power to build habits that align with me. I have the power to create a digital space that no longer makes me feel that way and makes me fueled with ambition, gives me logical steps that I can take to get to that place, allows me to see the reality, not the imaginary. And it was until I built this digital sanctuary that I now reclaim today that I no longer have lost confidence in myself. I no longer feel upset about the way that my body looks. I no longer feel upset about not having the perfect eyebrows, about not having the perfect everything. I no longer feel like a lost confidence. I feel complete. I feel happy now. And like, don't get me wrong, I can't sit here and say I'm confident 99% of the time, but I'm confident at least 70%. And that is better than anything. So just think for a moment. When you're actually scrolling, do you leave feeling more connected with yourself or further away from where you actually want to be? And because I realized that comparison was just leaving me with that unintentional feeling, that is how the real shift began. I left feeling super uneasy, super down, super exhausted mentally, physically, and I just felt awful about myself. The constant comparison to everybody's body, their lifestyles, their relationships, their achievements. I was lost, but I also felt like I was behind. I felt like I had to be where they were. And bearing in mind, these are people who were about 25 and I was 18. Like they've had 7 years on me and I'm still thinking I'm behind. These are 40-year-olds that have got hundreds of millions of pounds of businesses. And here's me at 18 thinking I'm behind because I don't have that. These highlight reels create a distorted reality. But it wasn't until I realized that these individuals, Some of them are doing an incredible job at showing the truth and explaining the truth. One who you all know I talk about is Emma Gled. Her podcast, Aspire with Emma Gled, speaks so much about the steps and the habits that she has taken over the years to get to that position. When she does interviews on Forbes, when she does interviews and podcast episodes with Mel Robbins or Jay Shetty, you really connect with her. You really get to see her. And it wasn't until she had the realization, I think, as well, that she realized that she didn't like where she was. And it wasn't until she took the steps to get to where she wanted to be that her life changed. And when I inserted that mindset, my life changed too. I began to no longer drip feed my life with all this content. And I changed my life for the better. I changed my life about building a system that worked for me, a system that felt aligned. And that is when shit started to really happen. That's when I began to feel so much more confident. That's when the weight began to go. That's when that shouldering feeling of discouragement from myself disappeared. And don't get me wrong, that voice creeps in at times. But now I no longer let it control me. I no longer let it affect my mood. And this is how I did it: the creation of a digital sanctuary. So, before I get into this digital sanctuary, if you want to start considering, if you want to make this change, what would you change in your life right now that would stop giving this feeling of comparison so much power? And when I finally realized and acknowledged how much that feeling has cost me, not only monetary, but also physically and with connections, the next step became clear. I needed to take my attention back. I needed to put the focus into me. And that started with how I use my phone. Ever since I did that, my phone time has dramatically shifted. I've gone from 6 hours to 3 hours a day. Some days it can hit four, but that's only if I've got to do a lot more work and my devices have all gone down, and or I'm needing to message more friends to figure out a solution to a problem. That is really the only time that it goes above three. And I've shifted from reactive scrolling to deliberate interactions, from creating steps in my routines that give me that time where I do check my phone and not allowing that to control everything. I become intentional. I'm intentional with when I use my phone. But don't get me wrong, I will sometimes just sit there for a second, probably a bit longer than I need to, probably a couple of extra minutes. But that's okay because it can't be perfect. Nothing is. But realizing that my attention had now begun to become a part of me and that I am making these decisions for me, that changed everything. Using my phone as a tool, not a master, and choosing content that actually inspires me and doesn't drain me. Having my For You page on TikTok be all these inspirational and motivational quotes to get me moving, to seeing all this inspirational content on social media, on Instagram, that I align to too, by having certain people on Facebook that I align with and not following certain groups, and the only content I see is my closest and my nearest and dearest. Taking all of that into account, that is when steps became action points. And these action points reclaimed my attention. And this entire turning point changed everything. So, what would you change in your life if you did take that attention back? Because with that clarity, I did need some practical tools that I could actually stick to, that I knew that would actually help me create a digital space into something that could support me. And one of those first tools that has worked incredibly is having no phone for the first 30 minutes of waking up and no phone for the last 30 minutes before I go to sleep, because it allows for a quieter morning. I'm not checking if I've got any messages. I'm not checking what's going on in the world. I'm not. My head is just quieter. It allows for clearer thinking, and I get straight out of bed. I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, inspired by Mel Robbins, who, if you haven't listened or read that book, The High Five Habit, I highly recommend it. But getting out of bed has changed it all. As soon as my alarm goes off, which is on my phone, I swipe it and I get out. And my phone just stays there. I don't go on it. I don't touch it for the first 30 minutes. I'm not inundated with anything. I'm just in my zone, getting into my gym clothes and having my breakfast. That is the routine I have done for the past 3 months. I don't need to check it. What am I checking it for? Who's going to die? Like, what are the chances someone's going to die in those 30 minutes? Very slim. And if they were, I'd hope for a phone call. I'd hope it would be a phone call rather than a text. But alongside that, I don't go on my phone for the last 30 minutes. Personally, I don't like the blue light. I hate it. I feel like my eyes turn crustier when I wake up in the morning every single time I do that. I feel like I'm just more tired when I do that when I wake up. So I just simply stopped. I put my phone on charge and I read a book. Creating that new habit stack has allowed me to just shift my attention to something I actually want to read. A book at the minute being How to Love Better. Creating all of that, all of those habits has allowed my mind to be protected in the most vulnerable of times. Because I think that the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes are some rather vulnerable times. The times where you could get trapped into just doom scrolling and it puts you behind your day, or the time that you could just get trapped into doom scrolling and it leads you to being more tired the next day. Taking these actions leads to clearer thinking. It leads to a more practical approach and it actually works. But also, your screen time reduces by an hour. Like, imagine that shift. You're you're no longer checking it all, and everything is starting to piece together. You're creating new habits. I go to the gym now because of it. I read a book now because of it. I fell back in love with reading again. It leads to better sleep quality, and I have less anxiety. If I didn't do that, I knew I'd be accelerated. I knew I'd be panicking and be like, oh my God, I'm due to, oh, I'm so tired now. What on earth? Oh, I've got all this to do. Rah, 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 rah. I've got everything. But it wasn't until I made these boundaries in my life that the shift happened. So, how would your mornings and nights feel if you just began with 15 minutes of phone free time and you slowly increase that? Because once you protect the morning and the ending, the next challenge had to be a change in your stream, the change in notifications, the tiny pause that add to your attention span, that add up more than you can realize. How would your mornings and nights feel if you just created even 15 minutes to begin with of a phone free space? No longer checking your phone before you go to bed. You will see the difference. Your nights will be slower and your sleep will be better. Your mornings will be more focused and your attention will shift. Once I take these steps, I realized, okay, I've got my mornings sorted, I've got my evenings sorted. Well, what about the rest of the day? What about all the things that just constantly pull my attention that add up over the day? And that is simply notifications and how do not disturb has changed my life. We all are like, oh my God, do not disturb life. But what is the actual effect of it? I only allow family and close friends' messages to come through. Everybody else doesn't. No phone calls from anybody else, nada. Just my family and my friends. And that just allows me to stay focused. I turn my notifications off for Instagram. I've turned my notifications off for Facebook. It's all gone. I don't need to be inundated with all the notifications of someone liked a post, someone followed you, someone messaged you. Because if it was urgent, I'd get a text message. That's how I perceive things now. My notification summaries are incredible. Every like app, let's say it was like a Costa app or a Greg's app or Uniqlo or Zara, if those apps, types of apps sent notifications, I created a notification summary. And I don't know if you can do it on an Android, but I know you can on an Apple phone, on an iPhone. And I have those notification summaries at three distinct points: 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m., spread out through the day. And what it does is it groups those baseless notifications that don't actually really add any value and just distorts my attention. Every time if I had a notification of one of those types come through, I'd instantly check my phone. I'd instantly pick it up. I'd instantly want to see it. And now I don't do that. Now I don't have the time. Now I just fulfill my time doing actual things that count. And I can review those noties at those distinct points. Typically, as soon as I'm about to start my workday, typically when I'm having my lunch, and typically just after I've had my dinner and allowing my food to reset down and just going for a small walk. Those times allows my brain to stop expecting a constant flood of notifications. Bing, 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 bing. Oh, small break. Bing, bing, bing. Oh, no. Okay, bing. Oh, no. Okay, off my phone. Oh, back again. That constant stimulation of needing to have all these things coming in undated is so consuming. It's so draining because it's like you can't put it down and it shifts your attention away from the things that actually matter. I've noticed that I can get my tutorial prep for uni done in less than a day. And that's with doing other things. It's not taking me the full day. I get my readings done within at least 2 hours now. I get my notes done within at least an hour, and my flashcards made within half an hour. These sudden shifts have changed everything. I have more time to spend doing things that I want to do, such as dance in my room, listen to a podcast, ring a friend, speak to my parents. If I didn't do that, I have no idea where I would be or how behind I would be. There's a reason why I'm now up to date with all my work. There's a reason why I've used these tools to change my life. There's a reason why I haven't fell behind once this year, why I've managed to submit everything on time, why I've managed to do all my uni work as a full-time law student, why running a podcast, beginning social media content creation, because that's something I've been genuinely wanting to do for ages, figuring out how to balance that with a part-time job of at least 16 hours a week. And there's a reason why I managed to do it all. And not to mention going to law events and speaking and hanging out with friends. By changing the way that notifications come through has allowed that dramatic shift to create intentional times, intentional moments, and for me to no longer be inundated. So just think, what notifications actually deserve your attention and which are just noise, which are just there to let you know of an offer, let you know what's going on, let you know of a new drop of some new outfits. Because when I stopped letting every notification demand a reaction, I started to see how much control I actually had and how one of the biggest shifts, creating a world where I just was able to be one with myself. And another step I had to take was creating a following, curating that following into what I needed it to be, who I needed it to be, where I needed it to be, and why I needed it to be that. And that was the biggest detox because it took the most time. I went one by one on every social media and unfollowed every account that drained me, every account that just wasn't adding value, every account that was no longer with me, no longer aligned with me. And my following went from 500 to at least 90. And obviously, it's slowly increased as time's gone on, back to about 140. But I only now have realized that me taking that step, I'm no longer needing to check my phone constantly. I don't have to go through that. Oh my God, what so and so, what social media influencers doing this and that and that. I don't even care. I don't care. Why was I bothered about that? Why was I caring so much? When I need to know everything at every point about everyone, I didn't. So my following now only includes friends, family, and inspirational people. People that I aspire to be like. People that's mindset align with mine. People that teach me knowledgeable information and things that I actually abide by, religiously abide by. Things that I love to learn about, whether that be business, motivation, mindset, manifestation, and realizing that that intentional step created everything. I can't lie to you. I do also do the same on a Sunday. I take a small little part of my Sunday just checking that all the followings are in alignment with me. And it's a small little 5-10 minute task that I might do if I'm on the toilet. Bit to a TMI, but we get it. It's just these small little tasks of just cleansing my followings, cleansing my TikTok reposts, because when they are no longer in alignment, that's the shift. If it's not in alignment, I don't want to see it. If I see myself going in a different direction, I don't believe in it. I don't want it. By rewatching saved content, I stay aligned to who I am because that content is me. I agree with it and I want it. And if I didn't take these steps, my life wouldn't have been detoxed because I'd still have those trigger points. I'd still have those moments where I'm seeing something that I don't want to see. And I'm trying so hard to do all these other things in other parts of my life. And I still get inundated and seeing it, but I don't want it. And so I don't do it. So just take that moment and take that thought. And does your feed across all your social media platforms reflect the person that you are becoming or the person you're trying to outgrow? And once your feed starts to feel lighter and more aligned with who you are, your habits match. And for me, that's how the Pomodoro method works perfectly. I use the Pomodoro for every sort of task, everything that I need to do. I will spend about 20 to 25 minutes in deep focus, deep time where I am so in on that task that nothing else matters. No other notification, unless it's an essential one. And how I have those 5 minute breaks, not just to scroll, but just to reset my relationship with my phone, just to check in, check if a friend's needing anything, check in on the news, just check in on the real world. And bringing back that structure and clarity and discipline is my entire life. I live a disciplined life. I lead with structure and I have clarity. If you don't know by now, get to know because the other past week's episodes have literally the essence is all about structure and clarity. Because not only does this support academic focus, but it reduced my digital overwhelm. My screen time drops dramatically. I no longer have to check my phone and want to pick it up. It's like the last thing I ever even think about doing. It's like the last, oh, I've got nothing else to do. Okay, what am I going to do with that time? I no longer ever want to feel about, okay, I'm just going to sit there and scroll on TikTok for a bit. So creating that habit of reducing my following, reducing that attention and that want for attention created a change that I could never have imagined. So just think, with all those things that have just happened, what is one habit that you could introduce that can help you stay intentional instead of reactive? But even with all of this happening, and even me going through all of this around about the same time as the loneliness paradox, which, if you haven't already, watch that episode or listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There was one thing that was constantly pulling me back into my old habits, and that was Snapchat. And why I deleted Snapchat was everything. Because that one powerful reset was the biggest dramatic shift I'd ever done. I'm going to be slightly honest with you. I was obsessed with my Snap score. I needed it to be the highest upon highest because I thought that's how to look popular. I needed to have the highest upon Snap streaks because I needed to look popular. I needed to have the best sort of Bitmoji because I needed it to look popular. I needed to have the biggest amount of friends on Snapchat because I needed to look popular. The biggest number of mutuals to make itself look popular. To do all these streaks to make myself look popular. Waking up and intentionally and immediately, the first thing I would do would have to be sending a streak of a blank wall. Every single little thing there was what my life became revolved around. And I'd react instantly to a message within 5 minutes. I was no longer on Do Not Disturb, and that was it. That's what my life became. And that's what my life had become probably for a good 2 years. Realizing this, I laughed. I genuinely laughed at myself. And I can't lie, you might be like, why are you laughing at yourself? That's horrible. No, I had to. Because when saying it out loud, I give myself the ick. I give myself the ick. I'm like, why am I doing that? Why? Like, what am I doing? Realizing the amount of time I'm spending focused on this one app that isn't paying me, that isn't literally doing anything for me, and is only just hijacking my attention. That is crazy. That is just, oh, it gives me the genuine ick now. And so I just deleted the app. But then I did re download it a few times. And then I did delete it again. And then it wasn't until I just deleted it. I went on a 4 month break and I didn't look back until I re downloaded it for somebody else. And then I realized if they can't respect the fact that I don't want the app, they're not my person. And now I'm 4 months free of Snapchat again. So in total this year, I've pretty much been 8 months free. January and February and March, I was on it. And then July to August, I was on it. And now I haven't. I genuinely don't know what it's like to not be on Snapchat. I don't. And I don't miss it at all. I don't miss constantly waking up, needing to check in. I don't need it to send really long video messages. I don't. Because don't get me wrong, if I was to send a video message, it'd be of the ceiling. It wouldn't be of anything out of interest. So I just send voice notes and I can do that on any app. And all my friends hate my voice notes, which is incredible because if I was sending a fucking pointless Snapchat video of the same thing, they would hate that even more. So it's intentionally better. And it's so freeing. I'm no longer comparing myself, needing to have the highest snap score, needing to have the most friends, needing to have the highest streaks, yada, yada, yada. I no longer need it. I don't see the point in the app. I'm like, if you're at 18 and you're needing the app, there is something seriously wrong with you. We have better forms of communication. There's WhatsApp. I might sound really old for saying this, but there's Instagram, there's WhatsApp, there's Facebook, there's iMessage. There's iMessage games. iMessage, you could do exactly the same thing. It's crazy, I know, but I don't care for the app. I really don't. Unless the app was paying me, then of course I would care for it. But I just don't right now. And I just don't miss it. But that's just my story with one app and how one app has basically changed my life and how reversing that change changed everything. So, is there any app that you think is doing the same for you? Is it taking more than it actually gives? And what would happen if you took a break from it? You took 1 day from it and built that up over time. What would happen? Because I genuinely think you would be scared. I genuinely think you'd have no idea. Because removing that one app gave me so much clarity. And it made me want to protect the rest of my digital world even more intentionally as well. That's why I'm meticulous with all the content I consume. That's why I choose all the educational accounts that I want to choose that uplift me and motivate me. That's why I realize I don't need to watch TV and soap dramas. Like I haven't watched EastEnders in a really long time. Because when my digital space adds so much value and aligns with my digital environment, that is a life that I want to build. A life where I feel more grounded, more focused, and more centered on me. Because digital clarity leads to mental clarity, which leads to life clarity. And going through that entire change in my environment changed me. I no longer criticize myself. I no longer criticize my appearance. I no longer feel bad about me because I was constantly feeling bad about me by comparing to somebody else. Like, who are you and what are you? So, creating a peaceful digital world. What if you did that? What is one step you could do that? Because when you make the smallest shifts, you realize that building that digital sanctuary isn't about perfection because the journey is never perfect. Let me tell you that. It's about intention and why. It's about having that why and embracing that why. Because until you do that, your life will never change. And don't get me wrong, I thought in order to do that, I needed to disappear offline. I needed to go ghost and I needed to do all that. But you don't need to disappear from the online world to find peace. You need to create boundaries. You need to create steps that align with who you are. You need to build a digital sanctuary that feels like home. The goal is not zero screen time because that would be insane and I am never achieving that in my life. it's about intentional screen time because your attention is power and you deserve to spend it on things that make your life richer. So until next week's episode, just remember the best investment you can ever make is in yourself and reclaiming that power of who you are and reclaiming that attention back to you saves you so much time, makes you so much more money, and leaves you feeling so much more fulfilled and so much more energized about the day. So, again, thank you for listening. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to next week's episode.